Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Go ahead, hit the like, hit the share. In this video, we're going to talk about the FBI corruption. Because the number one thing people want to say off top is the FBI's conviction rate. The FBI's conviction rate. But nobody wants to think about the FBI corruption. But let's dig into that.
Common reasons for public corruption. It can be an issue at every level in office. There's been a string of high-profile corruption cases in the Rio Grande Valley. The 19's Bill Barajas shows us how the FBI McAllen office is doubling its efforts to root out the problem.
Walking out of the federal courthouse in McAllen, former Hidalgo County Sheriff Lupe Trevino, just one of many recent Valley officials involved in public corruption. Trevino was charged with money laundering and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison.
What drives public corruption is what I call the gatekeeper concept. And the gatekeeper means that if you want to get to this, you got to come through me.
Most recently, Progresso ISD. Officials there taking bribes for the rights to construction contracts. Supervisory Special Agent Rock Stone attributes the high numbers of cases to small towns and a lack of checks and balances.
In that case, we had, I think, 5 subjects that were convicted federally and had multiple sentences ranging, many of them 5, 6, and 12-year federal prison sentences for the corruption that they were engaged in.
Back in November, Stone started the Corruption Task Force. It includes FBI agents, Texas Rangers, Customs and Border Protection, Internal Affairs, Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General, and the Housing and Urban Development Office of Inspector General.
Naturally, we try and eliminate corruption at the systemic level. I believe
the corruption.
In public corruption and civil rights, the best cases just come from citizens. And they're usually like many of the cases we've been starting lately, where it's citizens just walking into the FBI offices.
Bill Barajas, KSAT 12 News.
Extortion, wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Those are the crimes federal prosecutors say Michael Grundy committed as an assistant Wayne County executive and the executive director of Health Choice of Michigan. According to this grand jury indictment, Grundy conspired with his longtime friend Keith Griffin to enrich themselves with money that was supposed to be used to provide low-cost health care to the people of Wayne County. Federal prosecutors say Grundy used his position with the county to enrich himself by using deception and fear to extort a local healthcare company. 7 Action News first reported in November that the FBI had met with the CEO of ProCare Plus to investigate allegations she had been pressured to provide thousands of dollars in kickbacks to Grundy. Mr. Grundy's attorney, William Swore, has said that Grundy absolutely denies the allegations in the indictment, and he expects.
So the men and women at home need to know what's happening. A lawyer at the FBI creates fraudulent evidence, alters an email. That is in turn used as the basis for a sworn statement to the court that the court relies on. Am I stating that accurately?
That's correct. That is what occurred.
Now, you have worked in law enforcement a long time. Is the pattern of a Department of Justice employee altering evidence and submitting fraudulent evidence that ultimately gets submitted to a court, is that commonplace? Is that typical?
I have not seen an alteration of an email end up impacting a court document like this.
In any ordinary circumstance, if a private citizen did this, fabricated evidence, and by the way, what he inserted was not just slightly wrong, it was 180 degrees opposite what the evidence said. So the intelligence agency said this guy is a source, and he inserted this guy is not a source. If a private citizen did that in any law enforcement investigation, if they fabricated evidence and reversed what it said, in your experience, would that private citizen be prosecuted for fabricating evidence, be prosecuted for obstruction of justice, be prosecuted for perjury?
They certainly would be considered for that if there was an intentional effort to deceive the court. On this, I'm going to defer because, as we noted here in the sentence you indicated, we referred that over to the Attorney General and the FBI Director for handling.
Evidence of a witch hunt? Well, President Trump says the coming release of documents and texts related to the FBI's Russia probe could provide evidence that the FBI probe was a political conspiracy. Here's what the president said today. I hope to be able to put this up as one of my crowning achievements, that I was able to expose something that is truly a cancer in our country. Here with more is Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, who's done more than just about anybody in the private sector to reveal what's been going on. Tom, first of all, what do you think of what the president said?
Oh, I think he's right. I think it's a significant anti-corruption move. It's an heroic move. It's an historic move. I'm not aware of any prior president taking a personal interest in accountability for government agencies that he's responsible for. And he's doing it over the objections, I guarantee you, of all the lawyers advising him, all the deep staters advising him, and probably his own appointees in the various agencies. And I mean, credit to him for taking this initiative, because we don't know what's in the documents. He doesn't know what's in the documents, but he does know that transparency is the best disinfectant.
Well, and what we do know so far is revealing enough about what was happening with the FBI and what was happening with Bruce Orr at the DOJ, sharing a political hack job on Donald Trump, sharing it with the FBI even before the Russia probe began. But the point is, and I think this is what the president was getting at, there's nothing more dangerous for a democracy like ours than if the FBI puts political interests above the rule of law. That is extraordinarily dangerous.
Now, I don't agree with a lot that Trump says, but I can definitely agree with the fact that there is a lot of corruption in the FBI that has been well documented. Well documented. And all you got to do is research it. So when you're so quick to talk about the conviction rate of the FBI, also take into consideration the tactics they use to get those convictions, such as intimidation, seizing all funds so that you can't properly defend yourself, seizing any funds they may feel is connected to you, weaken your defense by targeting those close to you. These are all tactics we have seen so clearly in history.
This is an anonymous letter sent by the FBI to Martin Luther King, urging him to commit suicide. He was one of the primary targets for the FBI's illegal surveillance program in the 60s, called COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program which targeted many civil rights groups, such as the Black Panthers and the American Indian movement, and activists like Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X for more than a decade. The purpose was to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the possible threats against the existing order. The program was exposed in 1971 when a group of activists stole documents from an FBI office on the night of the Muhammad Ali-Joe Frazier fight and leaked them to the press. Today, COINTELPRO is something people recall from the past as the darkest FBI program exposed so far.
What else is the FBI up to? They want to keep painting this narrative of R. Kelly being this master manipulator, this puppet master. But as we can see, something ain't right here. And I'm tired of these people using the conviction rate of the FBI to justify the fact that obviously, if we go over these indictments, we'll realize something is not right. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the video.
From RT News. Licensed criminals, FBI informants authorized to break the law 5,600 times in 1 year. Published August 5th, 2013. In at least 5,658 cases in a single year alone, the FBI authorized its informants to commit crimes varying from selling drugs to plotting robberies, according to a copy of an FBI report obtained by USA Today. After much redacting by the authorities, the watered-down FBI's 2011 report obtained under the Freedom of Information Act has revealed that agents had been authorizing 15 crimes a day on average in order to get the necessary information from their informants. The document does not indicate the severity of the crimes authorized by the agency, nor does it include material about violations that were committed without the government's permission. It just cites a number of 5,658 Tier 1 and Tier 2 infractions committed by criminals to help the Bureau battle crime. According to the Department of Justice, Tier 1 is the most severe and includes any activity that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony under federal, state, or local law if engaged in by a person acting without authorization and that involves the commission or the significant risk of the commission of certain offenses, including acts of violence, corrupt conduct by senior federal, state, or local public officials, or manufacture, importing, exporting, possession, or trafficking in controlled substances of certain quantities. The Tier 2 includes the same range of crimes but committed by informants acting without authorization from a federal prosecutor, but only from their senior field manager in the FBI. In the past, the newspaper revealed the violations ranged from drug dealing to bribery. As an example of severe crime committed by unauthorized informant, the newspaper references the case of James Bulger, a mobster in Boston who was allowed by the federal government to run a gang ring in exchange for insider information about the mafia. Since then, the U.S. Justice Department ordered the FBI to track and record the wrongdoings of the informants, results of which are due annually. The FBI remains secretive about its informants. It is known that in 2007, the FBI estimated that around 15,000 confidential sources were employed by the Bureau. The Justice Department has requirements in place which spell out the rules of engagement with informants and otherwise illegal activity. Authorization of violent crimes are not allowed by field agents, and serious offenses must first be approved by federal prosecutors. But as the publication notes, the FBI's Inspector General concluded in 2005 that the agency routinely failed to abide by those rules. The FBI's scheme to gather information using such methods is believed to be only the tip of the iceberg, as other local, state, and federal agencies also reportedly engage in similar practices. The FBI's share of criminal prosecutions in court only amount to 10% of all criminal cases. Meanwhile, a spokeswoman for the FBI, Denise Ballou, declined to comment the report, saying only that the circumstances in which the Bureau allows its informants to break the law are situational and tightly controlled.
Is it really? It's okay for the FBI to use all these individuals to go out here and break the law and then tell on the next individual and get a plea deal.
He destroys it. Everybody knows he did it. He knew that they were looking for it, and they give him immunity.
And it was alleged today Combetta recently tried to destroy these online requests for help, wiping a very VIP email address that turned out to be Clinton's.
And then the clincher. Just last week, he's going online and trying to delete these Reddit posts. He's trying to cover up his tracks. He's trying to cover up the cover-up.
And he still gets immunity.
I think that's what's so curious about all this.
Curious?
Based on the FBI's own records, Combetta was doing the bidding of Clinton IT specialist Brian Pagliano, who set up the server.
He got immunity too, and then he went to Congress. Congress subpoenaed him and wouldn't show up. This guy is going to be in contempt of Congress. I mean, is that cooperating?
It's not. And most of these agreements have an obligation to work with all branches of the government.
Doesn't it concern you as an investigator that your chiefs in the Justice Department decided to become an immunity-producing machine for many people who would have been very key witnesses should there have been a prosecution?
They have spent millions of your dollars. They have torn this country apart. They have cast aspersions on this president and anyone around him. They're all either foreign spies, Russian spies, or if you're not that, but you just say that he didn't do this, you're a Russian asset. They have dragged people in the mud. They have destroyed people's lives. They have wasted our time and our money. They have they've gotten us to a point to where we don't believe in the rule of law anymore. We don't believe there's justice in the Justice Department. How do you believe the FBI? How do you believe the Justice Department? Oh, well, we're taking 40 correct. I don't give a damn. Where are the people that are going to jail for it? Give me the names and the people, and I don't want low-level people. Because there's no way this happened on the low level. This was all turn a blind eye at best from the top. And
And when he say that, just look at this thing from a whole perspective. Not only with all the other corruption that's going on with the FBI, but let's just look at this case in particular. With all the allegations that have been thrown out there, all the damn articles we have read about these enablers and handlers, why is only one man sitting in fucking jail right now? Oh, 'cause that's the golden goose, as referenced.
It goes all the way back to the White House. I'll bet you it goes all the way back to Barack Obama's White House. And I want to know. Because otherwise I don't have any trust in any of this stuff. The FISA report, the FISA court has come out and condemned the FBI. And I want to read it again. Of, quote, creating a misleading impression about their basis for requesting a warrant, and ordered the Bureau to overhaul its process. They accused, quoting, the Bureau of providing false information and withholding materials that would have undercut its 4 surveillance applications, end quote.
Now, from what I can see off top, all these jackasses want to keep bringing up this indictment, which I'll get to in just a minute. Y'all don't think it's possible that, again, this case was presented in a manner to get these indictments, but the evidence is going to fall short at proving these allegations. Because the more I investigate these Jane Does, the timelines are not adding up. And the allegations that are coming to hold him, like, for example, the threats. We have people on these lives telling you that they did these specific things, yet who is sitting in jail because of it?
In our opening monologue tonight, the House Intel Committee Chair, that would be Devin Nunes. He has sent a letter tonight to Attorney General Sessions that says the FISA surveillance application for Carter Page, a campaign associate in the Trump administration, for the Trump campaign appears to be a clear violation of FBI rules for submitting evidence to the FISA court and may also violate criminal statutes. Mark Levin's legal foundation, the Landmark Legal Foundation, has also filed a motion. They're asking the FISA court to do something about the suspected abuses allegedly committed by the FBI and the DOJ. He's also the host, our new colleague. We're proud to have him, and that is Life, Liberty,
So what do you do when the people that are supposed to be enforcing the law are abusing the law? And in the meantime, you got all this going on in the background, brainwashing the masses to be docile to what's really going on. Like even the inhumane treatment that's going on with these prisons. The rodents, the lights being off, no water, all that. People throw these people in these cages and treat them like animals. All at the expense of our government, who we can see is ran by a whole lot of crooked individuals. So who can you trust? Let's go to the indictment. So it's funny as I skim through, these ages just keep going lower and lower. So now he's interested in middle school girls, 8th grade girls, as stated in the indictment. According to them in the indictment, the victim is stating that her female parts are of 14-year-olds. So this is what is convincing them that the girl is 14-year-old. But my thing is this, if that is the case, you know, if you go back, I could swear they were saying that the girl was 13 at the first trial. But now we gonna just keep, okay, this is what I'm saying. We can't even get the age correct. They want to leave this age gap as to when this video was made. So let's talk about the first discrepancy that I have. Number one, it talks about the threats that we heard Old Faith describing that she received. But we all know who issued those threats. Same person that's been on people's platforms showing the photos. You know, we saw those photos. And we heard that person talking about what he was doing on behalf of R. Kelly. But who's in jail and who's not?
Intimidate one of the witnesses when they tell us Rob can't write or read or spell. Like, who did it? Why are they saying Rob is intimidating witnesses? There was no letter written to intimidate any witness. This is what was sent out. You see what that says? It says, I do not accept this contract. I do not consent to these proceedings. He signed it. That's it. And then we sent to the lawyer and to the Justice Department the stuff that refuted what she said. These are the pictures of her that we sent. Text messages of her that we sent. And basically what we were doing was showing people how she lied and said that he forced her to call her daddy with her text messages. She's doing that on her own. She flew to fucking New York on her own. She said it in her text messages. How she lied and said he did this when she did these things on her own. After that, they dropped the damn case. One more call. Never made it. He never made it to court. I mean, so there was no such thing as this. This is what media and the other side is saying, that there was some threatening messages. It wasn't a threat. Rob was made aware of his legal rights based on the UCC code 1-308, and he does not have to consent to any offer or any subpoena to court, which is an invitation. All you have to do is write that on the front of it. All you Americans look at that too, because y'all might have a day in court. Look up the UCC code 1-308. Understand your rights. That's an invitation to contract with the court. You can't not answer it. You can't not show up. You have to do this. You have to write this on the front, send it in, and that eliminates the contract with the court. That's all he did. And based on the evidence that with it, they said, you know what? He got a point. She's doing this, and lying saying he did it. So you're not going to move forward with the case. And then he dropped it. And it was printed on TMZ. 129, what was that? 1918, TMZ did a full article, full page on it stating that the case was dropped against Faith Wise in New York based on the information. Right. Okay, we have another call on the phone. What's your name and where are you calling from?
So back to the indictment, now that we know who was acting on behalf of R. Kelly. It says, But what sets this case apart from so many others, and what makes the defendant even more a danger to the community, is the defendant's extensive history of obstruction of justice, the threats, the intimidation, the witness tampering, the hush money payouts. So, clearly he's not doing the threats, the intimidation, the witness tampering, the hush money payouts. Again, I don't believe that he was aware of a lot of the things that were going on, considering that these managers, accountants, and all these other people had access to this money. And as I did a little research, I kind of found that these managers, they can access up to a certain amount without having to be approved by the artist. So who's to say what that certain amount was for them? And these aren't just mere arguments from a prosecutor. This is what the defendant is actually charged with. A grand jury found probable cause that the defendant obstructed justice in all those ways. This risk of obstruction is real. This risk is ongoing. Like, I'm reading the indictment and I'm trying to figure out, am I reading the indictment or am I reading this long sob ass story again? What's really going on? And we're supposed to take this serious. It goes on to say, finally, Your Honor, the defendant has already shown his intention to disrespect this court by not fully being upfront with pretrial services, by not claiming his first marriage to Aaliyah. Well, if it never happened, why would you claim it? So that's the implication that it did happen. Again, something they gonna have to prove in this old court system. You know, the real icing on the cake for me is that back at the first trial, when all that was going on, the FBI was involved. So you mean to tell me that with the FBI being involved then, they wouldn't have come across none of this other shit that allegedly occurred in the 90s? It just don't make sense to me. Especially when they sat there and talked to one of the people that was in the sex tape, Deleon Richards, and how she detailed how she was being extorted. Why? Because she was married to this baseball player. So the same time R. Kelly is being extorted, they tried to extort her based on her celebrity status. And it's just odd people are not understanding that the fact that the stench of marrying Aaliyah was put on his name early on in his career gave him this image. And the fact that these people have now come out and given you all these stories of all these girls that have been guided to these specific attorneys to extort money and now are claiming to be victims. We're supposed to bypass all that. According to this article, the feds wanted to play the sex tape starring her. So people want to automatically assume that even if they had found sex tapes of R. Kelly, that they're with underage women, underage girls, I'm sorry. But the fact is, if there are sex tapes, they're of course with consenting adults. As far as Rashonda testifying, saying she is the girl on the tape, as some people have said, and as the indictment alleges. This is where they're going to have a hard time with me at. How was she in multiple places if multiple people have testified that at that time she was touring in Europe between 98 and 97 when this alleged tape allegedly was made? According to her sister, she testified that she shared hotel rooms with the alleged victim when the Christian pop group toured the United States between 98 and 2007. When her relative was a teen, she had much smaller breasts than the video's well-endowed video participant, Edwards stated. According to the indictment and Avenatti, R. Kelly paid for his first acquittal by bribing the witnesses. But according to articles put out, they state that attorney Christopher Brown, who represents the alleged victim, suggested the victim did not testify in the trial because the family received a $2 million payoff for their silence are false and have no basis in reality. But yet, we see where Michael Avenatti is today. Like, I am seriously curious to know how none of the sequence of events have began to affect this case against R. Kelly, considering the prosecutors being investigated, the attorneys are being investigated, incarcerated, the witnesses have a long, shady background. I really don't understand how people can keep turning this blind eye and keep saying, well, he married Aaliyah. Well, fuck. Seemed like to me y'all should have said that then and we could have got to the bottom of it then instead of now. Shit. According to the indictment, the videos are crystal clear. But according to what the shady attorney who's been incarcerated released, yeah, they clear all right. Clearly photoshopped. That's not going to fly. So at this point in this day and age, I don't really know how far they going to go with these tapes they claim they just stumbled upon. Somebody just coincidentally left them in a garage and etc., etc. Where's the chain of command?
Curiosity and actually concern about how this case was handled. As I've said previously, we dropped the ball in the level of transparency that we should have had around this case. And immediately after this case was resolved, I said that I welcomed a non-political review of how our office handled the case. I called for, back in April, for the Inspector General to come in and look, but that's why.
So how are we supposed to overlook this prosecutor who, I'm pretty sure by now y'all have seen the text messages, even included R. Kelly and referenced him as a pedophile, given her history and her wanting to sympathize with these women that are calling themselves victims. At the end of the day, if you break down these people one by one, you will all come to the same conclusion. Having a man incarcerated because you are displeased because of your poor choices is not right. Nor are all these people wanting to call themselves newfound advocates abusing this little moment in the spotlight to further gain their little agendas. It's not going to work. We see past the bullshit, and the FBI's name being mentioned is not an intimidation factor for everybody. Open your eyes and pay attention to the facts, and stop being swayed by your emotion and how you think R. Kelly's lifestyle went wrong, when at the end of the day, we are not here to judge him on his lifestyle choices. I personally don't care what he does in his bedroom. The point and the topic was and should have always remained is, has he broken the law? And the fact is, they have just taken these experiences these women have given them and found legal loopholes to charge him, which is the sex trafficking, which is shit we see every day. Let me give you a prime example. My Facebook inbox. What is it when people get on the internet and start getting in people's inbox, trying to meet up and do things like that? Is that going to be the next form of sex trafficking? Because according to them, these girls going to these concerts with him and having sex with him while on these rendezvous is sex trafficking. What I imagine sex trafficking is people being held against their will, taken. That's the vision I get. Not groupies going out doing the most and becoming starstruck enough to do the most. Then cry they're a victim.